Welcome back, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Yo,
Episode 4.
I didn't think we'd make it past 2, man.
Yeah, it's a shocker. I mean, we're making a lot of changes behind the scenes, and one of the things that you guys probably have realized in the last episode was we sound a lot better, and hopefully we will continue sounding better.
We have officially fired our AI chatbot. It reminded me of the Big Bang Theory episode where Raj actually went and fell in love with Siri when Siri came out, and they showed Siri as like this random woman in a call center.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it was the real Siri voice, but it was pretty spot on.
Yeah.
From what I remember, at least.
So, let's introduce our first segment. What the fuck happened this week?
Yeah, what the fuck did happen this week? I mean, a couple of cool things happened, but I think the funniest thing and the most absurd thing that I've seen this week is the airplane shitter.
Wait, is that the one where someone diarrheaed, for lack of better words, all over the hallway?
Yeah, so it was Delta Airlines. And
Of course it was Delta. Of course it was that. If it wasn't Delta, it would have been Spirit or Frontier.
It's on brand, right? You had to find a shitty airline and then shit all over it.
I mean, it was a flight from Atlanta to Barcelona, so you know it's like a long one.
So they had stomach problems before they went to a Spanish-speaking country?
Yeah, not during, which is really funny.
Wow.
Yeah, so the passenger was unable to control their diarrhea, and it was so bad that it spread throughout the airplane.
Yeah, I saw like some passengers video on that where like this person is literally like there's a streak through the aisle of this airplane into the bathroom.
Yeah, how did that happen? Is it because they were on their way and because of that they were leaking on the trip to the bathroom?
Yes, I think it was uncontrollable diarrhea and in such vast quantities that it was leaking and left streaks throughout the aisle. And it got so bad, and like the streaks were unfortunately so long that they had to land this plane because it was a hazard.
Holy shit.
It was
Pardon the turn of phrase there, but
it was considered a biohazard. How do you biohazard on a plane?
I mean, at that point, is that an achievement or a failure? I don't know.
How do you get out of that stall afterwards? Like, you know, I mean, it's like at least 20 pounds lighter, but like, how do you get out of there and like face everyone on this plane?
Yeah, including the cabin crew, which tried to like contain it, and they failed so miserably that they had to actually...
Personally, as a cabin member, because I've never had diarrhea on a plane, to that extent, I mean, maybe coming home from a third world country once upon a time, maybe, but I would think I would support them. I don't know, wouldn't you guys like...
Support the cabin crew?
No, support the person and just be pissed. I would be pissed. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, you suck, I hate you.
Okay, but I'm going to give you some perspective here. So the perspective here would be, you can be pissed, and that's a good thing. Because imagine that these people actually think that they're still going to Barcelona before this flight gets landed.
Their parade literally gets rained on.
Yeah. Oh, shat
on, yeah.
It was right there. Come on.
I know.
And they assume that they're still going to Barcelona and they're going to be smelling their shit all over the plane for 10 hours. Because I think Atlanta to Barcelona would be around 12 to 15 hours or something like that. So imagine that.
Imagine like using all of your credit card points. Like maybe you just graduated, like this is your senior trip, I guess.
Maybe it's your honeymoon.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, I'm going to Spain. Everything I have earned is going into this trip. And then someone shits on your plane and like Delta, much like other airlines, maybe they're just like, sorry, unforeseeable circumstances, we can't help you.
Yeah, because I'm not sure about like the Atlanta area, like how many flights actually go internationally. I think it's a big international airport, right?
Atlanta is probably one of the busiest airports in the world. Atlanta is a big hub for a lot of international flights too.
I personally, if I was one of those passengers, like I don't think I would be mad. I would be laughing because like this is a hilarious thing that I would think would only happen to someone like me. Like, you know, your flight literally has to get emergency landed because someone shat in the aisle. But, like, I wouldn't be mad at the other person. I would just, like, be laughing and I'll try to contain it within myself. The point that which I would get mad at is if I had to land and it's still being Atlanta Airport. I am not a fan. Like, I recently traveled to Atlanta Airport. Yeah. It was easily, like, some of the worst airport experience I've had.
Wait, sorry, Atlanta was one of the worst?
Yes.
So what happened with this flight? Did they come back to Atlanta? Did they land?
Yeah,
in a
they
different
landed
city?
back in Atlanta.
Holy, how far were they before they came back?
I read about this, and they were in air for about 2 hours when the pilot made the decision to go back. So they were like, these passengers were on their way to their
They
destination.
were one movie in, man. Right?
Yeah.
You're one movie in.
No, if they were 2 hours out, then they had to come 2 hours back. So they were in
so,
there.
so you're one movie in before you're realizing you're going home.
Yeah, and you're in this little tube.
You can't land it anywhere.
It's over the ocean.
Yeah, but I'm sure you're not going from Atlanta. You could probably find something in the middle, right? Like 2 hours out, but wouldn't you find the closest airport at that point? I don't think Atlanta would be the closest one because it's kind of in the middle,
I see
right?
what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure. Normally, flight paths are always tricky because of the shape of the Earth. They may have hooked south.
Wait, we're entering the episode 1 territory of is the Earth flat or not?
That's true. Oh, you know what? That's probably why. They wanted to turn back because they probably had to figure out a way to go over the edge of the Earth.
Yep.
I think being one of the bigger international airports and busy airports, I think they just went back there instead of going to like South Carolina or like Washington or something.
So that's really interesting how diarrhea caused a whole flight to go back. I find it super hilarious.
Yeah, but regardless, I think this is one of like the craziest stories ever. Like just having to land a plane, creating a biohazard because of like probably some bad takeout food.
Do you think it's Mexican food?
I don't, because they were going to Spain. I don't think anyone is like, oh, I'm going to have Mexican food here.
Before a long flight.
Well, speaking of unhealthy food and causing diarrhea, have you guys heard of the cabbage stew liquid cleanse?
First of all, no. And second, ill.
Apparently, it's one of those healthy trends that people are doing right now.
I wouldn't say healthy. I think it's a health trend that people want to do to lose weight. So they just make like cabbage stew, throw in some other vegetables and like boil it. And that's kind of what they have for a couple days.
Hold on. So are they actually eating all the veggies and everything? Or are they kind of just stewing it, letting it brew, and then drinking the water?
Only drinking the cabbage stew for a set amount of time.
Normally a cleanse is all like, I feel like those kinds of things are all liquid.
It basically helps you detoxing the body and losing weight quickly.
There's a lot of these, right? I know there's one that a lot of people did when I first started working, where you take honey, cayenne pepper, obviously water, and basically you just drink that for multiple days. And like there's some weird stuff coming out of you, but you basically detox and getting all the extra gunk and everything that's building up in your intestines to clear out.
So my whole thing with this cabbage stew thing is that I know that the stew itself is high in fiber, it's good for you, and this is something that people like genuinely have. But the reason people are doing this, from what I saw, is like, hey, I'm gonna do this for 2 weeks and I'm gonna lose a lot of weight and I'm gonna feel good about myself. Yes, high in fiber, good vitamin C, but the reason people are doing this is so like they could supplement their life, and I don't think that's healthy at all.
Isn't that why a lot of people do a lot of these cleanses anyways? It's like, I've done all this bad. Let me do one good thing in between bad things.
Yeah, and I think genuinely preparing and doing these extreme things for 2 weeks, like, oh, I'm just going to have cabbage stew for 2 weeks so I could prep for a wedding, not sustainable or healthy.
But I don't think that's the sustainable part, right? Like all the people who are doing this for a wedding, like you said in that example, they're just doing it for that one event, right? They lose a bunch of weight for that one event and then they're okay with going back to the lifestyle. But I don't think the goal of these cleanses is like a permanent, let's do it like month over month thing. It's more of once every 6 months. It depends on like what you do with it. But you said that you can get behind some of these lifestyles. I cannot. I like my burgers and fries
Oh yeah,
way too much.
I absolutely could never do these things for that same reason. I will say, like, I had a friend who for a couple weeks was having just celery because she's like, it's negative calories. And don't get me wrong, it is, I guess.
My God.
But you're still eating a lot of celery, a lot of fiber. There's a lot of stuff happening, but basically she was always hungry. Afterwards, she had some issues. Some of these are like, if there's something scientific to back it, I can't imagine cabbage stew is being backed by any kind of scientific research.
Can you imagine that though? Just eating celery for all this time.
Drinking.
Wait, then it kind of takes away, right? I think because I thought celery was negative calories only because you're chewing it and burning off the energy.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the cabbage. My bad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the celery. Yeah, I love celery. That can't be the only thing I eat.
With these trends, I just don't think that these are good, because I don't think drinking these like cabbage stew or eating celery or whatever repetitive thing you're supposed to do for your health, I don't think that it's gonna give you all the nutrition you need for the day. Even if you supplement with pills, it cannot be good for for your body. Like, yeah, weight loss wise, like it might help you lose some water weight. Like your body's just in such a deficit that it needs to start eating up things. But it's gonna eat up your muscles first. It's gonna start eating, like, not your fat.
That's really what it's doing, because it's not for like, it's for a different kind of aesthetic, right? You're not there being like, I'm gonna do this to be like very healthy and toned. You're doing it to like, I have a belly or something, I need to get rid of that. I have a lot of fat, I have puffy cheek, I need to get rid of that. There's some misguidance there because they think that you lose weight evenly throughout the body, but it doesn't work that way.
So on a lighter note, just imagine you come home and you're like, honey, what's for dinner? And it's celery. And you grab a bowl of celery, turn on TV. That's your dinner. You're just eating celery and
Just
watching.
munching away.
Yeah.
And then she comes around and says, hey, you're eating it? No. You're supposed to soak it in water and drink the water.
So, like I was saying, I don't think the cabbage stew thing is good, realistic, or permanent. If you think that you need to do this for an occasion and then you were fine with going back to your lifestyle afterwards, fine, go ahead. Just know that you're burning mostly muscle and not fat, unless you're making other changes to your life. I don't think this is like the wonder fad that like people claim it is. But then again, I do think that people are smarter than they are, because fads like these come around every now and then.
And let's hope this is the first and last time we talk about cabbage stew.
Amen to that.
All right. Well, so you guys know me for a long time, and you guys know that I'm kind of an emotional person when it comes to like people close to me and stuff. And I think something I've recently realized is like, I don't throw enough roses. Like, I don't show enough respect to people that I think are amazing, and I don't know if I'm going to ever see these people again, or if I ever saw these people in general. So I think this next segment, which I'm going to call Roses, is dedicated to just some of the greats of our time, like some of the GOATs, the legends, the people that I personally admire, like changed the field in whatever they did, whether it be sports, the political arena, or just the world, or personal lives too. And I don't see anyone better to start this segment off than Kobe Bryant.
I like that.
I don't know how much you guys know about Kobe Bryant, but he had a very significant life. I personally was not really exposed to NBA and basketball as a sport. So I don't know how much you guys know about Kobe, but I recently learned a lot about him. Coming from an immigrant background, I was introduced to the NBA and the sport of basketball fairly recently. But in the last couple of years, I've learned a great deal about him. And he's had a pretty interesting life.
Give me some examples.
So
I thought he was just a basketball player. I mean, very beloved, famous basketball player, but I want to know like specifics.
He's a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
If not, he will be soon.
Arguably a GOAT.
Yeah.
In his own name, and that's something everyone can agree on, whether you're a fan of basketball or not. But he was a generational he was a legacy basketball player. Like a little like known fact that his father actually played in the league. His father played in the NBA. Yeah, his father played in the NBA, and then later on his career went to Italy to play in the international league.
Yeah, I remember Kobe played in Italy for a while too.
Yeah, he moved out there when he was 6 and played there until I believe he was 14 when he finally moved back to the States to go to high school.
Wait, I have a question. So this might be a little like off topic, but is there like nepotism in basketball? Because his dad obviously played in the league, so
if you consider genetics nepotism, then yes.
There's a little bit, only because let's be real. Like Kobe's, like if you're related to Kobe, there is an assumption, like he said, of some good genes, or like your dad was one of the greatest of all time, so we're gonna give you a shot. Whereas no matter how good I am or how good you are, we have to prove ourselves just to be able to step onto the court.
I personally don't agree with that, because if you look at it, Michael Jordan, right? Again, one of the greatest basketball players. He had children that tried to get into NBA, but they were just not good.
But they were walk-ons in high school, walk-ons in college, just because of their Jordan name.
Yeah, but in NBA, it didn't fly. Their stats just didn't speak for themselves, so they were not able to join. And Michael Jordan was a co-owner of the Hornets.
So I guess
Charlotte Bobcats, sorry.
Yeah, the barrier's there. It's just that for people who have parents who are very good in basketball, let's use this example, right? It's easier for them to be visible, to prove themselves. Whether they succeed or not is
Sure. So
to
there's
be
like,
determined, but there's some level to your question. There's some level of nepotism in my belief, but it doesn't necessarily mean you get a spot. There's no guarantee of being on a team.
Yeah.
okay, which is pretty solid. I mean, that's fair, right?
In the case of,
not really, but
in the case of Kobe, I think the only thing he inherited from his father was the name Bean. Like, if you guys don't know, but people call Kobe like Kobe Bean Bryant. His father, Joe Bryant, was actually called Jelly Bean. So I think that's the only thing he like inherited from his dad in that past. You know, like I was talking about how they moved back to the States when Kobe was 13 or 14 years old, when he was ready to go to high school. In high school, impressively, as a 13-year-old, he carried his high school team to 4 state championships every consecutive year, one after the fucking other. 4 state championships, and those teams were all led by Kobe Bryant. Imagine being a freshman and taking on senior varsity players and beating them at their own game.
that is so crazy. Like, I mean, I can't even believe it. Just imagine you're a freshman right off of middle school. Most kids get picked on as a freshman, but he's like, you know what? The cool jocks, yeah, they're in my team. I am the captain.
Imagine the other way, where you're a freshman and you have to play against senior Kobe.
Oh, man.
And you are a star coming in, let's just say.
But no, freshmen wouldn't have to play. See, most of the varsity teams are
I'm
just...
saying you're like a star. You're a star, like, coming in as a freshman walk-on. You're redshirting, right? You're a varsity player. But then you have to compete with Kobe, who's whatever state he played in, whatever competitions, whatever. He was the MVP. He was the best in the state, let's be real. Because he was one of the last... I think LeBron or somebody around him were the last ones to ever make it to the NBA right out of high school. I think they stopped that shortly after LeBron, I think.
Yeah, no, after those 4 monster seasons of carrying his team, he decided to skip college altogether and go into the NBA. And the crazy thing is, even after being just, a senior in high school, let's say, and deciding to skip college, he ended up being the 13th overall pick in the NBA draft, competing against like the greatest people of his generation.
Yeah.
People that have proved their mettle in college. And he was selected by the Hornets in 1996, but then immediately traded off to the Lakers. So the grunt of his...
Wait, where did he get drafted?
He got drafted into the Hornets.
The Hornets. Okay.
And then he got traded off into the Lakers like immediately. And like I just remember watching an interview of him, and he was talking about like, no, it's fine. Like, that's something he always wanted to do. And he was excited to build that team up. And because of his age, they, that was kind of a detriment to his career initially, because they put him in Beeline for a season.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he had to prove his mettle, and he ended up becoming like all-time rookie, like, Beeline player, in order to finally be promoted and put into the big leagues, right? We saw Kobe.
I've never heard the term beeline. So is that kind of like...
Is that B
the
string?
minors? The NBA minors? Or whatever?
That's kind of the bench. Like, the
B team.
The
B team.
I see.
B string, yeah, Beeline, sorry.
I see. I didn't realize...
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize there was a term for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he was on the B team pretty much, and he would walk on like he was a rookie, and he had to prove himself, and everyone had to see, yeah, he was the rookie, and he had to prove his mettle and prove his skill until he was finally promoted, and people saw his rise, people saw his potential. In 2000, Kobe finally teamed up with Shaquille O'Neal, the greatest dynamic duos of the NBA till date, by the way, in my opinion. And
you said it very distinct, like that was it. That was like a stat.
It kind of
said
is, actually. It kind of is. But the only combo I'll say that can compete, really the big 3 in Miami, right? Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James. But you're right, Kobe, Shaq, iconic.
Dynamic duo, right? Like no one else does it better. Like people talk about like, oh, Steph and Clay, but they don't have the same impact. They cannot carry a team and like the franchise on their back through championships. And you could see that with Kobe and Shaq, because 3 consecutive championships right off the bat, 2000 to 2003, and they won them. They kind of
wait off, like, does that mean 4 or 2000, like 2000 and 2001 until 2003?
Yeah, so they have
like
3 championships.
Okay, I thought he won in 2000 as well. Okay.
Yeah, they won 3 championships together right off the bat. And we all know, like, from recent interviews and like stuff and like things of past, that like they didn't have the best relationship back then. They were star players, but they were still trying to figure each other out and figure out like being the franchise player. In recent years, they did team up. They did establish a better repertoire and stuff like that. But back in those days, like even with all these problems, 3 championships. And after Shaq was like traded in 2004, Kobe was the franchise player. He was that guy for the Lakers, and that didn't stop him.
Yeah, but I mean, that's very commendable. Like for 3 championships back to back and then becoming just a star player for the franchise that's a lot of right off of college. That's a lot of weight on you.
And I know that like even then, I remember when Shaq did leave, there was a lot of talk about like who was gonna back Kobe, right? Kobe's what 6'7", I think 6'7", 6'8". So he's not a short dude, but he can't post up against centers. And so there's a lot of talks of like, was Kobe a one trick pony where you had Shaq kind of taking the reins inside, where if Kobe needed something, he could just throw it inside and that's it, automatic 2 points. But I think he still showed up, right? I mean, he won some championships after that.
Yeah, he won lots of, I think he won 5 championships total. And I agree, during that time that the NBA was centered around the big centers, like the big guys in the middle. That's what the game was.
It was a way more physical game back then. It wasn't about shooting threes like it is these days. You weren't putting up 100 plus points every week. You occasionally got them, but that's more of a numbers game where you kind of did it based on attrition.
Now you got LeBron and Curry just going crazy at it. You know?
And like Damian Lillard like shooting from the logo in the halfway court just to prove a point, right? That stuff would not have flown back in the old NBA. And that just shows a dominant force that Kobe was, in my opinion, to be able to shoot and drive in.
Do you think that was lack of skill or was it lack of showmanship?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think the game evolved. The game was much different. And those were looked at upon as risks.
I was going to say, it was a way more calculated game back then. Now it's like, shoot from the 3-point line. If you make it once, you now have my respect to do it again. And I'll think about it this way, right? Growing up, I watched Steve Kerr as a Bull, right? And he was a dominant 3-point shooter. He was a great spot shooter. He's the coach of the Warriors. And let's be real, there's got to be some influence there and some willingness to let that go.
Yeah.
To let Curry, Clay, I don't know if there's a third person, but like the Splash Brothers shoot 3-pointers, shoot 15 plus 3-pointers in a game each.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and with all that speculation of like, oh, is Kobe up to it? Is Kobe going to be able to do anything? I don't think he was invited to the Team USA in 2004. And that kind of led to the position to set Kobe up in a leadership role for the 2008 Redeem team. Because I don't know if you guys know, but the Team USA in 2004 lost like 3 or 4 games.
There was a lot of I think that was it. That may have been the one there was a lot of controversy around, because there was a lot of talk about like, I'm putting my body on the line, not getting really paid enough, and people just didn't want to show up. And I think that there was reasons that we lost.
I think what ended up happening was like we lost, and we were such a dominant force in the sport that it was a wake-up call for the like NBA as an agency. So what happened was in 2008, they wanted someone experienced, someone that they knew they could trust. So they recruited Kobe to guide the next generation for the Redeem team, is what they called it, because a bronze in basketball to our country seemed unacceptable.
Well, I mean, for a sport that's, basically drives majority of the sales.
It's an American sport.
Yeah, it's an American sport, 100%.
Yeah, so that Redeem team pretty much had everyone that we consider great now. Like it had most of the, the big 3, as you just called it, with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Kobe. I believe it also had Kyrie Irving, and just for shits and giggles, I think they threw in Carlos Boozer as well.
I was gonna say, I'm looking at the list here, and the fact that they got all these people to play, pretty impressive. Because people after the Dream Team, people just did not want to play in the Olympics.
Yeah,
it was actually surprisingly, we have enough talent where people are like, oh, someone will fill my spot and we'll still win the gold, or we'll still podium.
Yeah, and I think the greatest thing was that he whipped these, like at that point, LeBron and all these people were kind of new. They weren't veteran players that we see now. He whipped them into shape, and he made sure that like they were there for business. They were there for blood. And the greatest way Kobe showed that was one of his teammates in the Lakers, Paul Gasol, is one of his dearest friends. If you see interviews now, he's like the godfather to his children. Still checks up on like his wife and children. Like they were brothers. They were very much close.
Yeah,
but
that's really cool. I mean, it's good to have those fundamental relationships while you're also building, your sports.
Oh, I guess they did play together on the Lakers. I was wondering how they had that relationship.
Yeah, and I think I love that you say that, because the way Kobe demonstrated to his team, the Redeem team, that we're here for business, was Paul played for Spain because he's a Spanish player, so he wanted to play for his country. And in the first game, or one of the first games of the Olympics, all the players were like, "Oh, that's your boy. You're not gonna take it too hard, or you're not gonna be too fast with it. We could take over if you want." And Kobe said, "Nah, I got him. First play, I'm going to rush Paul and knock his ass to the floor just to show him that shit's not sweet. We're not in Los Angeles right now." And everyone was losing their minds. And like with that determination, that mentality, we kind of saw who Kobe was, and that's the Mamba mentality that he had, right? And which kind of led him to, and in that same year, he went to the finals in 2008, but he eventually lost to the Boston Celtics. And but he lost because they had their own big three: Pierce, Garnett, and Allen to combat him. So they stopped him in 2008. But then he went right back to beat the Magic with prime Dwight Howard and get his 4th championship. He still was not a one-trick pony. He still wasn't done. He was not satisfied. The job was not done. I don't know if you guys remember that interview where people are asking him during the championships when he's leading. It's like, "Oh, are you happy about being in the lead?" And he said, "Job's not done. I don't know."
I think the greats have that mentality. It's not over until it's like completely over, right?
Continuous improvement, man.
Yeah. And that led him to another championship in 2010, 5th and final championship, right? He had an 81-point game. That's second to only Wilt Chamberlain with a 100-point game back in the day. And back in those days, these people are pretty much drugged and coked up, ready to just ball.
Wait, what? I was not aware.
Wilt Chamberlain
was a so the whole thing. The difference here is that Kobe Bryant was in a league of his peers, basically, right? He was in a league of peers. Wilt Chamberlain was easily a foot taller than everybody else on that court. Not that takes away from the fact that he scored 100 points in a game, but my man was significantly differently built than everybody else on that court.
No, if you look at his life, he just talks about I used to party, fuck women, and dominate in the game of basketball. That was his thing. He was that guy, Wilt Chamberlain, and it was that time. And but back to Kobe, right? It was not that he was done. It was about that even with career-ending injuries, like in 2013, he had an Achilles tear, which for lesser players would be the end of it. But for him, he came right back.
So one thing I do want to highlight is did you guys happen to watch his last game? Either of you?
I did.
I went back and watched it after the incident, but yeah.
It was actually kind of funny because, it was clear the Lakers were just letting him play. They're just like, "Hey, listen, Kobe, it's your last game. Just shoot everything." He still put up 60 plus points that game. And I forgot who they were playing, but the team that he ended up beating in his last game, they needed to win to make the playoffs. And they didn't make it because they were stuck playing against Kobe in his last game.
I think that's a respect thing. I think the respect was given, and I think that's because even in his last season, I think.
I want to clarify that the respect was given by his own team and not the other team. The other team tried their best.
No, everyone gave. I mean, I don't think that
there was loosey-goosey defense.
Yeah. I think that everyone gave him respect because he was that guy. He had his own little training camp that trained Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Isaiah Thomas. They were in his invite-only summer camp that he trained. Kobe Bryant, even in his last season of let's say this last game was loosey-goosey, right, with defense, but he still averaged 17.6 points throughout that season per game. He was still putting up numbers better than most active NBA players. He was a beacon of just of basketball and energy and like light for so many young talent. He supported the WNBA so much, along with trying to help his daughters because it was their dream to play in the WNBA. Even off the court, he had his Kobe Bryant and Vanessa Bryant Foundation that helped millions of people.
Is that still going on?
It is still going on in his honor, and he had a digital studio which he created a movie in that won him an Oscar.
Wow.
He created a short film.
Which movie?
It was called Dear Basketball, and it was like his love letter to the game of basketball, which won him an Oscar.
That is so
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so cool. Like, that's really interesting because you would assume, a basketball player or a sports person to give back to its own sport, but this is a completely different way of giving back, right? A movie is something that's completely out of
Yeah, it's wheelhouse.
his court.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, like there's in his honor. Unfortunately, if you guys don't know, he did pass away in a helicopter crash in June, 2020, with his daughter. Right in January 2020 with his daughter Gianna. It was tragic, but in his honor, like there was an award given to named after him and his daughter in the WNBA to empower young women. It was just that, I think, for me, was icing on the cake to encapsulate the personality and person that Kobe was on and off the court. And that's why I think I want to throw some roses at his feet, because of the player he was.
Definitely mad respect. It's not easy to be someone who is, actively, presence matters, right? It's not easy to have your presence be recognized even after you pass away and continue to be a memory, right? So I don't think anyone will ever forget Kobe, because every time, I'm trying to throw something in the trash, I'm just gonna, jump a little and say Kobe and throw it in the trash. Try to imitate him. That's something that's gonna stick, and that's something that my kids are gonna learn by watching me, and it's just gonna continue on.
It's one thing to be good at the sport. It's another thing to be synonymous with the sport you played.
Yeah. Legacy, right? Like, he has left a really solid legacy.
Yeah, and it's all of that is fine. But if Lil Wayne makes a song about you, you made it in life.
That's it. That's the bar.
I guess that's it, man, right?
Yeah, it goes Kobe Bryant and Mona Lisa.
On that lighter note, let's move on to our next segment. The next segment I have, it's called What If. Basically, the segment is where I'll give you guys some ridiculous what if scenarios, and you guys have to say what you guys would do or how you guys would behave, or I just want to get you guys' thoughts on it. The first one I have is, let's say if you had the knowledge of what you have right now. You're today years old and you were sent back in time. How much time would it take you to take over the world? Or would you be able to take over the world? I want to know everything, like what would be like what you would do.
Realistically, I don't think I'll take over the world. I don't think I'll even be richer. I think what ends up happening is, like, and I've thought about this a lot. I think, because I see these things all over, like, social media. It's like, if take this pill and you have the knowledge that you have now, but like in 2013 or some shit. No one's going to listen to you 10 years ago. Like, especially me. Like, I don't think I would have been like, in 2009, I would have gone to my parents and be like, hey, buy some Bitcoin and sell it at this time. Or like, Amazon's a great vehicle for your cash right now.
Wait, so that's actually not what I mean. What I mean is, when I say time travel, you're not going back to your previous body. You're going back as what you are right now. So I don't think you're understanding the premise of the question. You're going back physically. You're going back in time, and with the knowledge that you have. This person right now in front of me is actually going back in time.
My answer still stands.
So it's a slow burn. Sorry, how far back are we going?
Let's say 1980s.
And I have the same means as I have right now.
Not the means. A portal just opened up and you walked through it.
But you have to consider that you have to start over. Like, you have no social
No
security,
money,
no ID. Like, you are a stranger that pretty much washed upon shore somewhere.
You have a social security.
So here's the thing. The 80s. So 80s is tricky because the 80s, there was a stock market boom, one. But the companies that are worth trillions today, one, either didn't exist, or two, were very, very cheap. So I think we could take it over. It would still take time. I wouldn't be able to take over the world. I don't have the power, nor do I have the means, the money, right? And the whole thing is to make your $1 million is significantly different than making $1 billion. In order to have the kind of power to take over the world, you need billions in dollars or have access to that kind of money.
So you're saying that you wouldn't run to Steve Jobs and be like, hey, let me suggest to you how to make an iPhone. Let me give you an idea of what an iPhone is. Incept that in you. You give me 50% of the earnings of the first year and basically infinite stocks of Apple.
So, but the whole thing is that how are you going to get in front of Steve Jobs?
But that's the fun part. You know all the things. You know how Steve Jobs died, right? You show up to his doctor's appointments. You know how Steve Jobs went to meditate.
My whole thing is I'm a little bit of an anarchist when it comes to this stuff, and I try to like mess with things. Right? There's a whole kind of like a classic conversation that happened between Xerox and Apple. We're both trying to sell the mouse user interface. Xerox came in and said, hey, here's a boring presentation. It does this, it does that. Apple comes in, Steve Jobs looking all cool with Steve Wozniak, the nerd, in making this a more like engaging, entertaining presentation versus a factual one. Xerox invented the mouse, but Apple gets credit for it.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is if I can just access people and figure things out, I can just come up, go to a Xerox location, and be like, hey, I know you're working on the mouse. And they'll be like, what the hell are you talking about? Immediately, I'm in now. They're probably going to assume that I was a leak.
Fine. I'll add you a superpower. You can take your smartphone with you, and I will give you internet connection, basically time travel internet connection, so you can get your 5G speed back in 1980s.
I'm a god then.
Yeah, dude. I talked about this last week, but like, or maybe the week before, but remember the whole thing about floppy disks? and those were like 3 megabytes max, or on a good day, maybe.
You're taking your 256 gig iPhone back with you.
The power of the spaceship was probably of the equivalent of like a vacuum these days. So I'm literally have the processing power of the supercomputers and then some back then. So yeah.
Problem is, how would you take over? Yes,
Yeah.
you would be a god. That's a given. That's why I keep giving you these things.
Bringing the technology as one person is not going to work, because what's going to happen? There are going to be people coming after you, black helicopters, to be like, hey, we need to get this thing that he has.
I have a different approach with it. I think the reason why with the device I think it would work is because I personally wouldn't tell anyone I have this device. I think I recognize, even in my previous example, you need a following, you need someone to back you up in order for you to have power, regardless of what information you have. You could be the smartest person in the room. No one gives a fuck unless you open your mouth.
Let me ask this question. Am I able to Google using today's...
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
No. But is it like...
It's not 1980s Google. It's the Google from now. You have the whole... You're taking your smartphone.
You have the history
of
from 1980 to 2023.
I just don't know if I'm connected to the same servers, you know?
It's interdimensional. Sorry, time travel based Wi-Fi connection.
Oh.
You're using this crazy VPN that travels through time.
Is it T-Mobile?
Okay, so I'm not even pinging any of their servers.
We're not even giving you shitty T-Mobile.
Yeah.
I'm giving you good, solid Verizon or AT&T. Take your pick.
Oh, and you're not even pinging any of their servers. Like, not that they exist. but if you were, they wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Then I agree. We could easily take over the world as a profit.
Yeah,
guys, you guys are not understanding the question.
You could literally no. At that point, you could go to Bill Clinton and be like, "Hey, I know about Monica," and he'll be like, "What?" And
I mean, different decades, but I get your point.
Right, like you're still living there, right? Like, and you're gonna be taking over America first. I'm guessing since you're in America,
guys. You guys are really not understanding the question. I kind of want to know how you would do. Yeah. So my intention was like, what would be the steps you would take? What would be like the first step?
Well, we're trying to get there. So, but the problem is we had to set the groundwork.
Okay.
All right, collaborate on this one.
I think.
So who do you approach first?
I think.
Or do you approach anybody?
Before I approach anyone, my first step would be get accumulated into the society, build my persona of like, gain some money of my own, work
Put some
a job.
time on this.
I would say 6 months.
All right.
Work at a McDonald's, have a bank account, figure all that stuff out, and then that's where I start approaching people.
What do you mean approaching people?
As in approaching people, as in that's when I go to the people that I know are going to be influential. Like I'll talk to Bernie Sanders, I'll talk to Bill Clinton.
What does this have to do with earning like the couple dollars an hour from working at McDonald's?
I think that's something that I'm like a foundation that I'm going to build. I'm going to start investing with the money
Remember, you don't have Robinhoods or all that stuff. It was very difficult to access capital markets back then.
Yeah, that's why I would take the time, gather up the capital, as well as...
The whole problem is minimum wage was like $1 or $2 or something like that.
I don't think that's a good...
So
that's
that wouldn't get you there. That wouldn't get you there, right?
So
otherwise, the whole thing is that anybody worth a nickel or worth their damn could become rich, because all it takes is someone to be like, hey, I just need to invest in the stock market. Information wasn't perfect, so we know where to invest and what to invest. The how was difficult.
Yeah.
I think the key was you had to get into somebody's pocket. And that was the key. That's why I want to know who you would approach. If I could approach anybody, I would go to like tellers or whatever it is and start talking to their clients, like their rich clients. You'd be like, hey, I need you to invest here. And remember, you're in the 80s.
This is the Wolf of Wall Street kind of time, where you have to get people to invest.
But you have time. The nice thing is you have a lot of time. And then be like, all it takes is you just have to search, when did the crash happen? And you just have to study the S&P curve and just be like, hey, listen, I think based off of my indicators, and you never tell them what your indicators are, the market is going to have a downturn by the end of this year. Once you get proven right a few times, people somehow figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And they come to you.
I think my next step of like approaching people, and by people I mean like influential people that I knew are going to be important, and give them a proof of concept of like, show them I'm a prophet, quote unquote, right? At that point, like show them I know things about them, or I know what they're doing, kind of like the Xerox thing, right?
No, you can't do that, because then you get killed. You never want to be a prophet, because that's too risky for everyone. It's a wild card.
But you're too visible. I get it. I originally thought the prophet was the way to go. But you're right. You're literally... I mean, again, it depends. If you don't get there fast enough where people are like die hard about you, you're immediately going to get axed. Let's be real. There's a few churches out there that are going to really take a lot more interest in you than others.
I don't mean prophet as in like religiously. I mean like someone that knows everything, right? Sorry. And like if you prove that proof of concept to like, let's say like I'm talking to Bill Clinton, and I'm like, hey, I know you're trying to run. I know you're trying to do this, that, whatever, and I've demonstrated some knowledge about him that only someone from the future or someone that he did.
How do you get that close to him?
Yeah, you will never get close enough to Bill Clinton.
Unless you like, again, there's so many other things that you have to do, right? Like even if you go on like a school trip, you have to like somehow figure out a way to like
enroll in school.
Our current age, be able to like pass as like to be able to go on a field trip to the White House.
I think Bill Clinton was probably a bad example, but like just political figures that I know are gonna like and be in their corner and gain that capital early on from them, right? Like you said, like connections happen. Like if I'm someone close to who's someone that would be young in that time that like had still power.
I mean, you had the right realm with Clinton. I just don't know what he was. What did he do before he was president? Right? That's I don't know.
So I know that he was a senator. And I knew that beforehand, he also went around university, and he was a big at campaigning at colleges. And even when he was younger in college himself, he would, have these speeches, try to be representative of a party and kind of talk about the party itself. So he was very accessible at that time. And this is before, like, I think a lot of security and all of these things changed because of terrorist attacks.
Well, again... security and all that stuff was always there. It wasn't necessarily to prevent terrorism because we were thought to be untouchable, but it was assassinations, right? JFK. I get your point, but what would you cite for Clinton or as an example? Like, because the Monica Lewinsky's thing had when he was
president.
That
was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, he was already president at this point. Your route is blackmail, or what is
not blackmail? Just like. I think it's like a sale, I guess a Cutco salesman. I'm
not liking your route. I wouldn't go down that route, to be honest. Personally, I wouldn't start at McDonald's, working at McDonald's either, because first thing I would do, I would probably have cash in my pocket right now, whatever pocket, because I'm walking through a portal. I would just use whatever money I have, and I would buy a fake degree or something, and just start working at like a really high paying job?
I don't think that would work.
Why wouldn't that work? 'Cause, like, you
The
have all the
currency is
information.
different.
The currency is way different, dude. It doesn't work.
Anyone that checks currency is way different, and
Yeah,
you
'cause
have to start. You don't have an identity.
You do. You have a social security.
Wrong.
It won't
your
work.
Your social security number is gonna say you're born in X year. Any kind of record wouldn't be there for us.
You have to work
That's
at
what I'm
these
saying.
jobs.
You gotta like it's gotta be some other route. Like that's what I'm saying. Like you have to give good advice to somebody, and then they start trusting you. Money's not gonna work because they have serial numbers, and the serial numbers are all gonna be fake to them, right? They're all real to us. Most of the currency right now in circulation, earliest you probably will find is like the mid 90s, like 95 I think was a big year, and that's what I'm saying. Like it is significantly different to go back there and try to use any kind of money approach without earning it then. I still think the route is to take over the world is knowledge.
100%. I agree with you, but that's why we kept having.
But you have to
It's
prove yourself, and there's small things, and small things could be something like predicting the market, could be like predicting world events, or taking out insurance policies at just the right time, and making people have to know who you are, but not in a super negative way.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line with logic and knowledge. I think it's a fine line. I think this whole conversation just proves two things: that one, I am a pessimist and I don't think I would be able to survive, and two, that I actually won't be able to survive. I think if I aim to take over the world in these situations, I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna survive. But if I want to have like a humble, quiet life where I get lucky, quote unquote, with the knowledge I have to benefit me, I think I could do that. I think I could have a pretty nice life.
And that's all I'd want, right? Like you go back in time. I mean, the whole thing is that then you start living from that time.
I want to go back and become a god.
And so, but the whole thing is that you then, the routes we're following, where it's like, invest in Apple in the 80s, invest in Microsoft in the 80s. You don't really reap that reward until decades later.
Yeah.
Sure, but the question is not that, you become rich in 80s or you take over the world in 80s. The question was more around what's your plan, and how long do you think it would take you to take over the world?
Yeah. And the whole thing is that like Tim Cook couldn't take over the world. Steve Jobs wasn't going to be able to take over the world. And he started the most valuable company in history.
I don't think that we would be able to take over the world in our time. I do think we would set up our families in a great way to be able to have multi-generational wealth and be able to position them in a form of power.
So, but you said something that Steve Jobs couldn't take over the world. That's because they only had knowledge about their own company, and they didn't own all of Apple. They own a certain shares of Apple. Now, if you were going in with the knowledge and the resource of, I can buy all the Google stocks, I can buy all the Microsoft stocks.
But how? But the whole thing is that you still know those companies get capitalized. They still get the money, right? The whole thing is that how do you get to the point where you wedge yourself in there, right? That was my whole thing, and that's why I was focusing on like you just buy shares of the company versus being like I'm gonna buy the company outright.
No, I'm not talking about buying the company outright
or buying all the shares, right? Like the whole thing is that
not all of it either, but like just some of it. Well, yeah. So like, I mean, I think it's possible. I think we just need to put our minds to it, then create a time machine, somehow create that interdimensional internet.
I feel like the means to get there are way more difficult than once we get there taking over the world.
I mean, if we can figure out all of these things, I think we'll be rich and powerful in our time.
Time lords.
Yeah, I just need to get multiple degrees in physics,
Quantum mechanics,
and be the best at that just real quick. And we're set.
We're set.
I think that was great. What if?
So for our last segment, what I want to do is I just want to read some Reddit articles and get your thoughts. I think it could be kind of fun.
Oh, I love Reddit.
And you're gonna love this. So for this week, I only looked at "Am I the Assholes?" Have you guys heard those posts?
Yeah, love those.
I love that. Yes.
All right. So the way I'm gonna kind of structure this, I'm gonna read everything through it. I haven't read any of the comments. I haven't read if there are any updates, just to kind of come in blind, and then let's discuss. All right. So, am I the asshole for leaving my boyfriend when his ex died, leaving him to take care of his kids full time?
Oh, brutal.
So I female 26, have been with my boyfriend, male 30, for 2 years now. He has 2 kids, a 6-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl with his ex-girlfriend. She moved to another state with her other kids to be near family when they broke up 3 years ago. He gets him on vacations only. I knew all this when I started dating him. I had no issue with this, but told him forefront I can't be a parent. I was parentified by my mom and raised my 5 younger siblings. Holy shit.
Oh my God. 5 siblings?
5?
Okay.
Holy shit. The oldest of them is 6 years younger to me, and I had to change his diapers and feed him formula. I went LC, I don't know what that means, with my family when I left home at 18.
NC means no contact.
Yeah, limited contact is what I'm guessing here now. I can't imagine doing that again. He was also snipped after the last kid and didn't want more kids. He was fine with me not wanting to be a parent and just be a bonus adult. We're taking it slow, and things changed 2 months ago when his ex died. The kids were really crushed as they moved into his house. We're not living together, but he asked if I could move in. I couldn't refuse and stayed, but I started hating it again. Last week was especially bad since a kid had a cold and basically had a lot of things go wrong. She's feeling stressed. So it triggered me. It didn't want to deal with my mom's responsibilities again. I understand if I stayed my whole life, it wouldn't be like this, never measuring up. I left yesterday, moved in with a friend, and my ex-boyfriend now, is blasting my phone, calling me an asshole. So am I the asshole?
How long were they together?
So I don't think it's, or it said at the beginning, 2 years.
2 years.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know if you're truly an asshole, to be honest, but because she set her boundaries, she let everyone know that, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and I'm not okay with this. I'm okay as a bonus, adult in the life, like she mentioned, but I don't want to be a parent. So I understand the circumstances changed, but she was quite clear about it. But it's also kind of an asshole thing to just leave your boyfriend in this time. Maybe help out a little and then leave.
In my mind, I have follow-up questions, right? Like did she know going in that he had this ex-girlfriend who he had kids with?
Yeah, she said that, right?
Oh, you're right. But the whole thing is I guess you never think that he's going to be a full-time parent if he isn't right now, considering how young he is. And I don't know if they told me the age of the ex-girlfriend.
Also, he didn't have the custody, or maybe he was not living with the
only
vacations, right?
Vacations.
So that's fine. You can handle kids for a few months.
So she felt safe. Basically, it was like, hey, I had this childhood trauma, and I don't want to deal with it. And
I'm going to go off on a limb here, and I think people will disagree with me, but I say not the asshole. I genuinely think definitely she's not the asshole. Yeah, she gave up on a relationship, but those are because it didn't meet her boundaries and her needs.
I think the issue is not giving up on the relationship. I think that's totally fine, but I think the issue is just ghosting someone, right? She just moved out. I don't know if she had any conversations about it. I don't know if she communicated that with the person that, hey, this I can't handle.
Yeah.
I have to move out. If she just got up and just left to her friend's place to stay, move out without telling him, that's the asshole part.
I think when you portray it like that,
Yep.
it makes it seem like everything was sunshine and rainbows, but internally she was just overwhelmed and he had no idea. But in relationships, when your girlfriend doesn't like Thai food and she's eating Thai food.
Yeah.
With kids coming into the house and you're taking care of them. The kids had a cold from what you said, and she had to help take care of them and all of these things. And in a 2-year relationship, you have shared your trauma. This guy clearly knows what's going on.
He knows, but he doesn't know to what extent, right? He doesn't know that, hey, this is gonna make her just go away. She said that she doesn't want it, but I'm not sure if she said that, hey, if I have kids for more than the 6-day vacation, the 7th day I'm walking out or something like that. I know the situation changed and now she's gonna get he has the kids permanently, but she never, I don't know if she ever communicated that, hey, I cannot be part of this permanently.
I think she did.
Well, the whole thing is you're dating this person, right? Well, the general convention is you're not thinking kids, you're not thinking any of this stuff until you're married, right? And obviously a conversation or two has to happen first. Again, I'm actually in your boat too, where I don't think she's the asshole. I think not the asshole, because do I think she may have overreacted by leaving and cutting off all contact with her now ex-boyfriend? Maybe. But I don't know what conversations they had before that either.
I
right?
according to the post, she said that like I was very specific with him where like I don't want kids. The boyfriend said that yeah, I don't either, and I was snipped.
No, he was already snipped.
She's checking things on her list, and like and she said that she told him about her past trauma of how she had to clean diapers and like take care of her 5 siblings. Again,
yeah, actually, you know what?
Hassle.
Yeah, I'm looking back here. Look, she did say that she does not want to be an actual parent, but it's fine being a bonus adult.
Yeah.
Basically, like...
So that's different, right? Okay, so it's okay to be a bonus adult, in a relationship. That's totally fine to the ex-children. I'm not saying she is the asshole, at least for not wanting to take care of his kids. But I think the part that I'm saying asshole is not communicating with him that, hey, I'm leaving, and giving him the opportunity that, hey, maybe let me figure something out. I'm not saying he would, get rid of his kids or something, but, figure out a middle ground where if there are grandparents involved or something, like, because he didn't want one either, right? He didn't want new kids. He was happy he got the snip. He was happy about it.
He didn't want new kids, but he already had these kids.
But he also was happy with just seeing them for vacations. So he was clearly
we don't
fine
know.
with
We
it.
don't know. We don't know if that was because that's when he got them or that's all he got them for.
Yeah.
Like they mentioned the kids' age, right? 6 and 4. So these kids, the youngest was around for 2 years before he started dating this girl, right? Or the poster. And so I don't know what that could mean for how he interacts with these kids, right? I again, as a father myself, like I would take care of my kids, obviously, should anything go wrong.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing. I think he wanted her to step into that role, even though he knew she was uncomfortable, because he said in the post that like he asked her to move in during this time.
No, they moved in beforehand. They were already moved in beforehand. They weren't. I don't think he asked her after. They were already moved in. He just brought the kids to move in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he asked her to move in afterwards.
No, I mean the
and
kids
she
don't
would
have
just...
a home anymore. So like
No,
someone
of
has
course
to obviously.
Of course, the kids moved in. I thought she asked like to help out and stuff. But I still I stick by what I say. Regardless, yeah, maybe a shitty way to end the relationship. And this type of stuff happens all the time. Like someone just reaches their limit and just like breaks off and does no contact for much less.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the asshole part, not the other part.
I don't think it's an asshole part. I think that's like a rude part. Like people break up because someone's like a loud chewer. Like they chew with their mouth open, right? They're like, I'm done with it. I don't like it. Done. And they've gotten no contact.
But it's not about breaking up. I feel like we're missing the point here.
So
it's about how you break up.
So basically, it seems like there may have been conversations had. I'm looking at just some of the other stuff like here, but it just seems like there may have been some conversations that were had that we don't get to hear. But it's been 2 months since his ex died, right? So there's a lot to process in that time. So her leaving was probably her way of coping. I support you. Maybe I support you, but I can't support the situation now. And maybe she didn't feel hurt. They talk about mental health problems here. And maybe that was the issue, is that like they both had their own issues. And this is her way of cooling off. Now, I don't know. Let me see if I can find an update.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like in the post, I think it said like, she might been able to get used to it in the long run with the kids. But I just think that's like a sacrifice that you'd be making. And like what he said was like, there's a lot going on in the family. And, seeing that these kids lost a mother and this person lost like a past significant other, her emotions are put in the backseat.
So there's updates here. So there's some questions that were asked, and I don't know what the questions were, but here are the answers. And it's pretty conclusive of what the questions were. So I didn't leave without goodbye. I told the kids goodbye. I didn't want to cause too much strain and said I was leaving for a while for work. I did just tell my ex I was leaving. I couldn't take another round of stop acting like a child and grow up. 2, I don't normally work from home. He asked me to stay home with his daughter, stating he doesn't know how to take care of a sick kid. She really was sick at first, and I went along with it. But he refused to even help in the evenings. 3, most of your assumptions about him are true, in the sense that I almost always ended up looking after the kids alone. He rarely did his part. It was either he was exhausted, he couldn't face them, he didn't know how to deal with their grief, or I did it better. It was not what we agreed upon when I moved in to help. I I was supposed to help him, show him the ropes, but I ended up feeling like a single mom.
Oh yeah, definitely not the asshole. After hearing that,
right.
yeah, see that opens up. See, but the answer is questions
But
answered, right?
See, but
I
like
wanted
it-
to skip that because like right, I didn't want to read the updates, all that stuff, because I wanted to be blind, feel how it feels, and then of course we can go into it. But I'll look into what else she.
But yeah, no, like he asked her to move in to help with the kids. I think
Yeah.
definite asshole, right? Like knowing her boundaries, knowing her past trauma, because in a 2-year relationship, you know these things.
No, the guy is the asshole, not her. So she's not the
Yeah,
asshole.
yeah, like
Yeah.
The guy was definitely the asshole. Like she was not, and I think this proved it. I think from what I got is like at the end of the day in a relationship, yeah, you have to look out for the other person, the people they find closest, but you're still an individual, and especially in a dating sense, you still have to look out for your best interest because you're dating in most cases, or in cases like this, you're dating to marry, right? And if you can't see your future with this person or see a life where you're happy with the situation that this person brings, you have to leave.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I think she did that. And even if it was like a, quote unquote, like even if we didn't read the updates and it was a quote unquote dick way of leaving, abandoning the kids again.
Asshole, but
She's not the asshole, but it was rude in that sense.
Yeah.
But after the updates and everything, I'm with her.
Okay, so let's go around the room and say final closing arguments about like what we think, asshole or not asshole. What do you think?
Yeah, so I would say not the asshole. She came into a situation that she wasn't expecting at all, and he clearly wasn't very supportive of her decisions and her opinions on the matter.
Yeah. What about you?
I think I said my piece about this from the beginning. I was ride or die with this woman. She's not the asshole.
Feel like it feels like even his ex's parents don't want these kids. They're like,
Yeah.
They're like, it was probably for the best that he got custody. We're retired. We don't want to raise any more kids.
Oh, they said that?
This is her wording.
Oh my god.
But that's what she was saying. That was their reasoning.
Feel so bad for these kids. Like truly, like let's take a moment to talk about like how shit of a situation these kids are in. Like we didn't dive into deeper about like how they might feel abandoned with her leaving as well. In a 2-month span, like they would have abandonment issues, but unfortunate to say, it's not her responsibility.
No, definitely not her responsibility. So I'll wrap it up with my opinion as well. I originally was, saying that she might be a partial asshole because I didn't have the update that, she just didn't do a good job communicating with her boyfriend and just kind of, ghosted him. But listening in on the update where she actually communicated a lot of times and tried to set boundaries and stuff, and he was just basically his maid or his ex. So yeah, that's not appropriate. So I'm going to go ahead and say not the asshole for this.
And then, the top comments were mostly not the asshole. So
Yeah,
we aligned.
we align. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this week's pod.
Thank you for listening.
Had a great time, and let's hit the hay.
See you again next time.